So we are back with PSO. Unfortunately, my main computer is away, so the layout and some of the audio may be a little off today, and I do apologize for that. But to make up for it, we're doing a bonus stream today, and we have 2 DnD stories to tell, one a bit shorter than the rest. Let me tell you, chat, I was very disappointed between yesterday when the first event occurred and the second day, which is today, with the second D&D event. Very, very disappointed. So let's give a summary as we go just do some trivial quests like CCC and PSO as the backdrop for our story today. So for those that missed story time before, I've been playing D&D with a group essentially once a month. And from that standpoint, there's been weird tension, I want to say, between me and the DM. As far as I know, I don't think I started anything, nor do I really want to progress anything. But things were kind of at an awkward point, I want to say, from the last session, where I do think things were improving in the sense that I could at least see, like, you know, stronger storytelling, stronger moments, right? Like, there was something, I had positive things to say about the last session. And to briefly recap it, because this is important for the context of the rest of what we're going to talk about. Essentially, we were left off right after the, we'll call it, I guess, a DMPC, where a super overpowered NPC basically hand-waved an encounter away, in which they basically literally just told like a 10th, 14th level demon to not attack, so they evade, and that ended the combat extremely anticlimactically. So that's where our fellow adventurers left off last time, where I was not super thrilled, to say the least, of the build-up for that session leading into that. So this session starts off with just one player. So we go from we're basically fighting for our lives against demons to now it's just one of the player characters and the DMPC. I'll just call him the kid for short. I don't like saying the letters. Too many letters, chat. And so I think what they were attempting to do was to set up a dream sequence where essentially some force, which is different for every player, is attempting to take the kid away from them. The problem with that is that there is a party of at least 6 PCs, and basically everybody except for the one player involved at a time basically sat there for upwards of 40 plus minutes while they resolved some of these miniature segments. So right off the bat, I kind of understand where the idea was going, but these are things that if you really want to have what we'll consider one-offs, don't invite everybody to just sit around like bored and not even be introduced into the sequence in order to interact with it. And I don't mean like their characters are doing other things. Like, no. We as for the intents of the purpose of what was described for 40 minutes per player, there is nothing the other players did that is relevant to the other players, as every character is experiencing a different dream. It wasn't quite shaped like that. So the first time that we were in a sequence, it was just, you're alone with the boy, and you see name of other PC player, which is not relevant, screaming bloody murder, and they'll kill the kid, and they're threatening you that if you don't get out of the way, they'll kill you too. And then they proceed to have an extremely extended combat session where I get the idea, but they brought in like a level, I want to say 12 rogue to fight a level 12 barbarian, and it took forever, chat. Let me emphasize to you that like the number of rounds, because they kept missing, I think went over like 15 or something absurd. It was like a wet noodle fight because the barbarian is not really optimized, and the rogue also, as the enemy character, couldn't sneak attack. So they were just doing like 4 damage to each other, and they're like 100 plus HP totals. So just imagine every player just waiting for something else to happen. for a good like half hour as they picked one of the worst fights to kind of start things off. And I think a big issue with it too, and this is also where I'm very curious for people listening in, if you ever left the table for whatever reason, you're not able to make it to a session, would you be happy if the DM was role-playing your character without permission? I don't know if I would like that, to be honest with you. So a big issue with that, and where I'm kind of going with this, is that the DM knew that this is what they were wanting to do, I guess, at some point prior to the session. But they also didn't have the character sheet of the player in which they were looking to replace. So there was just kind of like awkward fumbling as they're like, oh wait, I have to actually know their HP, AC, and to hit bonus. And I'm like, you didn't confirm a known combat encounter? Welcome, Simply the Worst. Hope you're doing well. It sounds like a complete lack of respect. I don't do that when I run games and someone has to miss it. Yes. So I'm like, I am 100% sure the other player was not informed, because they have like a group chat thing, and I know for a fact they did not ask over the group chat or any of those details. Like, we can very publicly see who's not coming, who's not available, etc. Oh, Jaya did drop, but nothing of interest, sadly. So the first like 10 minutes was just like, can I borrow one of your sheets so I could get an understanding of what their stats are? And I'm like, shouldn't you know this? Like, to me that just kind of blew my mind. Like, can you imagine just like, oh, I guess there's another rogue in the party, I guess I'm just gonna copy their stats, sort of, for like the first 5 minutes as they're like fumbling through, like they're literally asking the table, like, I kid you not, like, oh, did this person have a rapier, or did they have a different melee weapon that they used? Does anybody remember the bonus they had on their longbow? Like, I'm not even kidding, that's what they were asking. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is gonna take an eternity at the rate at which it's being played. Holy. So that was just kind of a train wreck of combat. And like, I knew, like, listen, I knew some elements of the sheet, and I really tried to expedite it. Like, it was even to the point where like I had to respond, because apparently the DM didn't know when sneak attack would occur, despite DMing somebody with the rogue for over 5 sessions. I don't know as the DM how you wouldn't know how the core mechanic of a rogue works at that point. If it was like the first time, I would get it, but like, we're level 12. I'm sorry, I think as a DM, there's just certain things you should just know. So they were trying to like look up the rules and how sneak attack works in a one-on-one, and I'm like, did you prep this? So like, did any prep work happen at all? I mean, obviously the answer is no, it's rhetorical. But it's just one of those moments where it's just seriously going like, am I really going to be sitting through this? So I was, oh, I thought it's something interesting dropped, never mind. Excitement gone. So they kept asking questions on the character sheet, and it made this combat take like over 40 minutes, not an exaggeration. Like, it was just painful. Like, every attack was met with like a minute or more pause as they're trying to look up the rules. Then they're like, oh, what feats did he have? Like every single possible question you could think of. Like, oh, did anybody remember his dex? Does anybody remember what weapon he had? Does anybody know what his hit point total was? Well, what's your AC? And what were you wearing? Do you know if he was wearing that? Do you know what the weapon dice is for a longbow? I'm like, oh my gosh. Just like, it was something. It was absolutely something. Me, when I pay attention to my own games, is simply the worst. It was something. So, as I said before, not an exaggeration. It took forever. And then I also was thinking about, like, I know that there's, like, obviously, like, something weird was going on because only one player was involved, as, like, the important NPC was also there and was under threat due to something happening that we didn't know before the game session. And there's no explanation as to how we ended up here or what happened between us and the other combat set. Right? Like, so we know something is going on, but it's kind of like a weird start. No matter how you look at it, it just doesn't quite make sense. So one of the problems too, and I guess this comes down to like, I guess you could almost frame it as it was a choice, but I'm pretty sure the DM just doesn't know how the character works. So the player that he was basically trying to emulate the sheet on, right, is a sharpshooter. So anybody that has played D&D is aware that sharpshooter feat is like one of the best ranged feats in the game. At least for range attacks. So he's trying to set up this scene where essentially this kid is slowly like trying to hide behind the barbarian character as the rogue attempts to shoot at the kid. And then there were like weird house rule things happening on the fly where, you know, you had to roll a percentile dice if you distracted him from attacking the kid. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm telling you, I was like, so like, I'm not invested. Like, there is such rule gibberish happening. I can't even concentrate on it. I'm like, first of all, he has sharpshooter feat. And for those that don't know what that does, one of the most important things that it does is that it ignores cover. So the whole idea of like this character chasing like a small kid around a barbarian and attempting to shoot through the barbarian to hit him, the sharpshooter doesn't care about that. Number one. Number two, I feel like even if you didn't have the exact specs of the player sheet for whatever reason, which I don't know a world in which that should ever happen, honestly, as a DM. But let's say you find yourself in that scenario. Wouldn't you feel like at least the bare minimum you should do is understand the ability in which you know you're going to be using with the character? Like, if it's a dream sequence, you can kind of hand wave that not everything is going to be quote-unquote optimized. You don't want to play like this hyper ridiculous master plan when the outcome is more just what we'll call like a movie scene. And I think that's kind of the problem again, and I've quoted this in a couple other points, where it feels like the DM wants to have a scene happen, but can't orchestrate it in an organic manner, to the point where we're literally just getting railroaded without any real explanation as to what is going on. And if we don't move at the pace that he wants, then he gets like, I don't know if the word is bored, but he tries to like speed it up. So because he took like 40 plus minutes, welcome Wolfbang. So because he took like 40 plus minutes on this, he then decides to go to our second least prepared player at the table, which is not an observation I make lightly. Like, they're very new to the game, so they're used to just kind of following along. And now you're putting them in a situation I don't think they've ever been in before, which is one-on-one stuff. So needless to say, another half hour goes by. It was a little better that time because the DM had some stat blocks, but I kid you not, like, my explanation of it was almost more in depth than the details we got as we got in there. Right? Because, like, in terms of description, it was like, oh, this person is attacking you, trying to hit the child. Like, that's it. I'm not talking about, like, you hear stuff outside, or, you know, you feel something is off, but you can't quite put your finger on it. Like, all those kind of, like, cursory details, or potentially even good establishing details, not provided. So it was just a really flat, no context combat scenario with at most, like, a sentence summary, and then just lots of really awkward rolling, and most of the table not participating. So not a great start. Reminds me of the TTRPGR podcast I was telling you about. Oh, that sounds dreadful. I can't imagine scenarios like that. But yeah, and then I thought what was interesting and also super unfair, and this has been a theme throughout the combat encounters with this DM, to the point where I literally had to talk to players about this afterwards, that I said, if he does this again, we are stopping the game. It got that bad, because I'm getting very annoyed at this point that this keeps happening. So he wants to basically always get the drop on the players. So for those that have not heard the other portions of the saga, there have not been 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 different encounters where an invisible enemy immediately gets an attack on the player and the player does not perceive the enemy. 5 different encounters, almost all consecutively. And he will not let us get items to find said characters either, to be ultra clear. So if you miss the other portion of our discussions, I cannot even get something as simple as a +1, not armor. Yeah, +1 armor. I can't even get a +1 armor, but other players in the party also get things like bracers of defense like candy. It's like such nonsense. Like, I'm telling you, it's like such nonsense. So we're basically not allowed to equip to stop him from doing this. And the only thing that we kind of have to counter it is I could basically make something as an artificer, right? I can make something known as a helm of awareness, where I can't be surprised that I roll initiative with an advantage. And the problem is that other characters also have this through other class features and or things that they have on them already. Have you seen my updates? No, I don't think I have Wolfang. I haven't looked at Discord. So from the standpoint of combat, yet again, he is described in this session, not 1, but 2 separate instances. Chloe definitely breaks Del Saber, definitely. Where essentially the player may or may not get to roll an active perception check. Then they are immediately attacked by something, and then initiative is rolled. And the problem is that the first time it happened in the dream sequence, I don't know. It was a little fuzzier to me. We'll get to the second instance in a little bit. But I just want you to know that like a lot of combat shenanigans keep happening. And one of the biggest offenders is when one of the players, who is a wizard, is isolated. They are pitted against, in the dream sequence, basically like a super fighter and another super wizard. And the fight is like essentially unwinnable. To the point where the wizard tries to do anything and they are instantly counterspelled by this invisible wizard that they cannot see. Which, I don't know about you, chat. I don't think I would ever want to do that to a player. I feel like if you just want to piss someone off, just tell them their spells just don't work with like limited to no context. I cannot imagine being the wizard and trying not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 spells, and you move somewhere between 30 and 40 feet in a turn, because I think they had a boosted movement speed from something. And no matter where they seem to go, they get counterspelled. With no indication of what is causing it, until they essentially die. So, I don't know about you, chat. It just doesn't sound fun to me to do to a player. Like, yes, you didn't see the invisible mage that somehow still remains undetectable despite casting counterspell, which is verbal components. And even if he had improved invisibility, it's really ridiculous that this is a scenario where you decided to put a character into a 2-on-1, one of which is just apparently the most ultimate, most perfect counter ever to your character, and not allow them to do basically anything. Like, what is the purpose of having a dream sequence that is that one-sided? Like, I thought the whole point of D&D was to give players choices. So we're already seeing like very railroady encounters where we're not allowed, we're just thrust into it with very little context. We don't even know if there's any stakes at all to losing these. Because again, like, it literally was like, we're in a fight with something and then, oh no, we're just gonna suddenly start talking about our individual adventures with said character. Trying to make a game so bad he features on the RPG horror stories, maybe. And it's just so confusing. Like, again, like, I can picture what they were trying to do, but the execution was just super, super bad. Like, and again, like, I feel like if they just wanted to have a series of one-on-one fights, why wouldn't they just do this in, like, a spin-off session, right? Like, oh, like, you and I just need, like, a half hour or an hour, and we'll do this prior to everybody meeting up. And then, like, maybe the dreams could have been used to, like, feed details about some, like, prophetic event or something. And then each of the players could talk about how, like, all their dreams have, like, different symbology and weird meanings within. I could almost see how that would work, right? Like, it's not like the biggest stretch of imagination, but at this point, 2 players have been in like both a combination of unprepared and super grindy fights, and the second of which being completely unwinnable by the party wizard in a one-on-one, which is like, why are we even there at that point? I just have so many questions. Better money and continue onwards. So anyway, the wizard tries like a bunch of things. They try doing stuff with their familiar. They try casting higher level spells to try to avoid the counter spell, because something is causing it to not work, but the DM is being extraordinarily cryptic and not going into a lot of details. And as I said before, not a lot is being described. Like, me summarizing it, I have provided almost verbatim as many details as were provided. Like, what was the name of the thing that was fighting her? Who knows? What was the race of the knight thing that was fighting her? Who knows? Just, oh, I don't know, chat. Like, you might know more than me. I don't know. I wasn't given any context in terms of listening in on these extremely boring one-on-one fights. It's missing, no, you're right. Damn, so true. So now at this point, you know, the wizard, like, I guess gets mercy killed in a shorter amount of time. So I slightly misspoke the order earlier, but now the third player rolls around and they are not sure what to do. Like, at this point, they've now witnessed 2 players. One wins their fight, one horribly loses the fight. But nothing has really advanced in terms of game context. So eventually, through like meta talk, the group is just kind of agreeing that it's probably a dream sequence. So the person just says, like, I don't know why they didn't do this immediately, and that's kind of whatever. That's more of a pet peeve. But after like 4 more rounds of combat, where combat didn't seem to be going anywhere, they attempted to like teleport away. But, you know, I guess because the cleric gets special permissions and doesn't have wizard hate, their spells just work this time for some reason, even though the wizard tried doing a similar thing. Question mark? Who knows? So he somehow manages to get away. Sorry about that, the music paused. Was this a preferred player? I have no idea. It's a good question. If I had to guess based off of the session there, I would say he probably likes the barbarian player, and I think likes the cleric. I don't think he likes the wizard, and I am 100% convinced after today's session, or not today's session, the previous session, that he does not like me or my character. Which we'll get into. And notice, chat, that I'm describing these things. So I, as a player, have been sitting there with no agency in the story for, at this point, about an hour and 40 minutes. I arrived before 7:30. I am sitting there. It is 9:15. I have not interacted or existed in the scene to this point. I have not rolled a dice. I have not been asked any questions. I've had no role-playing moment at all. I don't exist. There is nothing in which I could do other than wait for them to finish what they're doing. So after, like, those 4 rounds of combats pass, and then I guess they just let the cleric go, then the cleric decides that, oh, why am I here is an understatement. Simply the worst can testify. At one point, I started messaging a group chat that I'm in, because I'm like, guys, nothing's happening. I'm just sitting here, essentially. And I put a couple of messages at the group chat at the time, because I had nothing to keep me company. I was super bored sitting there. So from that standpoint, they finally separate from a forced encounter, where I would also like to point out that the wizard also, after having all their spells countered, attempted to run away, but then, oh, when they tried running too far from the fight, they felt nauseous and now were suddenly unable to move with no saves. So I just want you to know like how railroaded that fight is and how unwinnable it was for the wizard, who couldn't cast any spells, couldn't run away, couldn't identify the location of one of the enemies, and was matched against a heavy knight user that also had extraordinarily good saves. With an invisible wizard companion that countered spells. Presumably wizard. Never explained. It just happened. So all that is going on, and finally they wake up. So I've now been sitting there. I had to sit through basically like 3 players at this point, and my quote-unquote dream sequence, because he realizes things are taking too long, is about 2 minutes in length. I'm given a vague threat from an ominous voice that I can't see, that I haven't heard from before, telling me to kill the kid or I'll die. And that is essentially the gist of the 2 minutes of gameplay that I got. Before, yet again, before I even really got to do anything, I would just like to throw it out there. Another character woke me up, and then the point of view was taken away from my character, and I had to wait for them to finish what they're doing. So I had about 2 minutes of gameplay by the 2-hour mark by this point, of which at least a minute of it was listening to the DM, me saying maybe 2 sentences about I go to ask what do I see around me, like have I heard the voice before, where do I think the voice is coming from, tell me what else is, what else I can sense with like X, Y, and Z, because I have the ability to like detect things, right? So instead of answering those questions, I just get pulled out of the dream. I don't get anything useful in that like 2 minute time period. So unfortunately, as I said before, now focus is taken away, and then they basically just put it in the point of view of the kid. And I kid you not, chat, like I literally kid you not, we are barely able to interact as a party for more than 5 minutes. We're basically going there and saying like, oh, we're having weird dreams. Like, did you have a dream too? And like everybody starts talking about it. And then he decides to interrupt our conversations. Like, we were not done. We were not like pausing or like stuck on what to do. We were having an active like conversation back and forth with several of the characters. And then he decides that, suddenly there's a knock at the door. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is, we're kind of in the middle of something, honestly. And then he basically has another powerful NPC character come up and ask us if everything is okay. And because we haven't seen the character recently, we basically start plot summarizing the previous session to that character. And then tell me if you've ever experienced this one before. I completely kid you not that this happened, and I'm still in like utter shock that this happened. I've never seen anything like this before at the table. So he decides, because we aren't asking the kid more questions, and it's very clear that's what he wanted us to do in hindsight, and that we were more just kind of figuring out what is going on in general and not really following up with the kid specifically, because everything is about the kid, chat. Don't forget, everything we do has to be in context of the kid. So because we were having conversations with ourselves and we were not talking to the kid or about the kid specifically, he introduces a character that basically comes in, basically demands to know what's going on. We start telling them what's going on. And then in the process of saying that, oh, we all just came out of a weird, shared dream sequence thing with the NPC, he turns to the party and he goes, he's like, I can't play 2 NPCs at once. Otherwise, it's just me playing the game by myself. And I'm like, first of all, literally, no one summoned this character. I would just like to throw that out there, chat. No one summoned this character. Nobody asked for this character. Nobody was thinking of summoning this character. And then he has the gall to complain that he has to voice 2 NPCs at once because he is an NPC, wants to ask the kid questions, rather than give us time to do anything. As I said before, this all happened within the span of like maybe 10 minutes after the dream sequence. We are collectively talking about what is going on and waking other characters up and making sure everybody is okay. We got maybe 3 or 4 sentences to each other before he interrupts this, by the way. I would just like to state this. Did you have Travis McClory as your DM? Insane. I don't know who that is. So yeah, so get this, chat. I was in such shock. I did not even say anything. I was literally like, my jaw dropped. I don't think the DM saw it because he wasn't angled towards me. But another player had to roleplay as the kid, so that way he could have a conversation with the kid in order to advance the plot. I just want that one to sink in as I create another game. I have never seen that before.
What?
I have never in like 10 plus years of role-playing seen the DM just go, oh, I don't want to roleplay as 2 NPCs in the same scene. More or less, why don't you do it? and then somebody complied. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm like, what? Oh my gosh. I was like, I really thought I was taking crazy pills. I really, honestly, 100% thought I was taking crazy pills. It was very special. So then and then this poor player, the wizard, is attempting to roleplay as the kid. And like, they're pretty decent at roleplaying, don't get me wrong, but it's like, they don't know how the kid would be thinking, because we don't know what's going on with him still. Like, the whole ploy, for those that haven't seen it in earlier sessions, is that essentially it's unknown whether or not this kid is actually a kid, is being twisted by evil forces because he's born of like some deity equivalency and he's slowly ascending to godhood, or if he's just putting on a facade of being a kid and he's actually just an adult in terms of like mental age but is a child in body. Like, we don't know what's going on. We barely spent more than a session with this kid, and it was not like consecutive hours, just to be clear. So we're still like, there's definitely a lot of weird things happening, but not enough like concrete evidence to point to one theory prevailing over the rest. Like, there's a lot of just really questionable things happening back to back to back. So this poor wizard player is now DMing as the kid and answering, I guess, how a child would act. And it doesn't really go anywhere because the wizard doesn't know what the plot purpose of the kid is, because nobody knows what the plot purpose of the kid is supposed to be. Simply the worst, says me, when my super awesome anime DMPCs are way better than my sticky wizard or rogue PCs. Yes. And then it's like, he's just like railroading to the extreme is an understatement, where he is guiding all the questions. It stops being us talking to the other NPC and he's just asking us questions, and we have to answer as the kid, as we're all like, what is going on? Like, why is this other character here? Why are they suddenly the star of the show? Why are we not allowed to kind of do our own thing here? So that happens for like an awkward 20 minutes or so of asking a mix of like not super relevant questions. Like, oh, how are you doing? What did you do yesterday? What have these people been teaching you? Like, it went on a really long time. Let me tell you, Chad. If you want to know what uncomfortable questions feel like, imagine sitting through that yet again, where you're basically not allowed to be involved in this conversation again, because you're not in the location that they're having questions again, and the DM is busy asking all the questions and basically role-playing as a player when this has not been asked, nor honestly is it welcome. So at some point, conversations eventually break down. I think the DM, I mean, this is more of my spin on it, but I think the DM realizes that it's not going anywhere. Surprise, surprise, it doesn't go anywhere. So then he has to briefly bring up some points to say, like, the kid wouldn't say that, and then has to briefly answer as to what the kid should or should not be doing. It was just a train wreck, chat. My only takeaway through that 20-minute conversation, because honestly, I learned literally nothing, because again, we're now recapping the previous session to the DM. Like, kind of point for point for a character that we don't even know if we trust, but we have to, because the DM just said they're here now, I guess. Question mark. Question mark, question mark. So, basically, the DM confirms that my suspicions about him being weird with me with the kid were real. I wasn't, like, just imagining it. Because he describes the when the kid is talking with this older... No, they're young now. They used to be some old woman and they regained their youth through some nonsense, whatever. It's not worth explaining. But from the standpoint of this conversation between the woman who is a tiefling and the kid, that it's confirmed that the kid looks at me for the first time since I've been there, not with fear or... What was the other word that he used? Fear or... It's not angst. I think it was fear and suspicion, I think were the words being used. And he's like, he looks at you for a brief moment with curiosity before going back to fear and avoiding you. Which, again, is like, well, I guess I didn't really do anything in terms of, like, actively making the NPC mad or anything. So anyway, this culminates in basically the wacky adventures of the kid, because again, we're not allowed to kind of do anything anymore. We're more just, where are we in relation to the kid at all times? So the session has been completely hijacked by this. Last session was kind of like that. This session was entirely about the kid. And one of the problems with that is, if the character doesn't like you, apparently, the kid eventually somehow sneaks off because we all simultaneously decide to take an afternoon nap because we're tired. Did we declare that our characters were going to rest all at the same time? No. Did we talk about what we were going to do in order to be safe because we're under, like, presumably constant attack? No. The DM has told us that this has already happened, and we must now react to those kinds of things there. So apparently the kid is just, we lose sight of him, even though he's the most important thing since, like, the wheel was invented, right? Like, we lost sight of the great invention that is this kid. And essentially we catch him. What horrible anime plot is this? Yeah, I know. Because he couldn't think of a way for the kid to get away from, like, 6 party members of super high level. Like, keep in mind, we're, like, level 12, I just like to say. But this one kid has completely outwitted all of us. Because we just all decided to go to sleep because the DM said so. Without asking anybody. I'd just like to emphasize that. He's now declared what every character is doing without asking us what is happening. And so, apparently, what the kid is doing is that he is attempting to create some kind of super poison because he broke into the lab of one of the other characters in our party. And the kid is just so good at it that he creates the most toxic, acidic death thing ever. Because of course the kid does. Of course the kid can do it. Why couldn't the kid do this? Thank you, Calvisha, for banning the stream move person. So of course the kid is able to do this. Why wouldn't the kid be able to build a, like, 2d8, 1d8 plus unknown amount of dice poison after about an hour of unsupervised poison making? Of course, Chad, of course. So our party's like, okay. And so, like, they take the poison away from the kid. You know, they do some very light parenting there. They don't really chastise him much because our party's a little warped, I guess, in that sense. I wouldn't call us like an evil party, but we are very morally ambiguous. Would be a good way of framing it. So then the plot point comes up that, oh, the kid that's just so good at making all this poisons. How are the runs? Nothing of interest so far. But then the kid is like, gets caught by us. Or no, not me, because I haven't been told where I am and given a chance to do anything. So this is now the wizard show again, I would like to state. This is now twice in the same session where I'm just sitting there like, I guess I'm not awake because I haven't been told where I am, or apparently I'm just doing whatever. The DM has not introduced me into the scene yet again. So from that standpoint, they go to collect the poison, and they determine, due to their collective knowledges, that there apparently should be more poison that they took from the kid than they found. So basically hinting at the kid is now smuggling some super poison to do something. And if chat thought that was anything other than to kill me and my robot character, let me tell you, this DM's subtlety is like, he rolled a 1. Do you want to know what he asked chat after the team found out that one of the poisons is missing? Take a wild guess. What is a really stupid thing you can ask a player when you're trying to be sneaky but you're bad at it? Just fill it in your mind for a moment as I pick up this item. What your favorite food is? No, see, that would be too that's too sneaky. How are you feeling? Close. Pretty close. Oh, we actually managed to make it to seabed. I'm actually shocked we made it to seabed. Good job. Would you like a glass of colored water? No. It's even stupider. So he asks me straight up. So he goes, so, name of your character. When you go to sleep, is your robot able to react if people are in the room with you? And I'm like, yes. Like, just like, yes? And then he's like, so is it limited to like one action, or can it do other things? And I said, well, according to the rules for the Artificer, for the Steel Defender, if I'm unconscious, it can choose to do whatever it wants, but it will generally follow the last order that I gave it. It's not a very intelligent creature. I think it's like int 4 or 5 or something like that offhand. I don't have the stat block in front of me. But it does have intelligence. And then he's like, so... And he's like, so does the robot ever need to like shut down to recharge? And I'm like, no. And I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm like, is he really trying to assassinate me with poison in my sleep? The character that is resistant to sleep is already well practiced in poisons, has con as their favorite save, and has a ever vigilant sentinel that can't be sneaked up upon because it is always active, never needs to sleep, and in addition to that, has a perception bonus of I think 8 because it's double proficiency. I'm like, get out of here. Me trying to figure out a logic puzzle kill my player in real time. So I'm like, I think, again, he has this big cinematic thing where he's, I guess, trying to kill my robot at some point in a very incredibly unsubtle manner. And I'm like, dude, it's just not gonna work. And then, you know what the funny part is, for people that haven't looked at the stat block of the Steel Defender? Do you want to know what one of the immunities of the Steel Defender is? It's poison, chat. The Steel Defender can't be poisoned. So that plan is like such a failure on so many levels. I don't even know where to begin. I'm like, really? I mean, you could try it. It's not going to do anything. If you do, I'm calling absolute tomfoolery shenanigans. I'm like, you can't poison the thing that doesn't eat or sleep and is not a living creature. It doesn't work like that. Oh man, a decent amount of money. So then he asked me a couple other questions. That one was obviously, to me, was like very funny. I don't think it was meant to be funny, but come on, chat. How can we not laugh at that? That is just that is just so ridiculous. I only have 975 kills with Lame to Argent. Huh. Oh, it got grayed out at some point? Why did that happen? I don't think it was counting kills on Lame to Argent. That's a bit unfortunate. Something weird happened. It was like grayed out when I loaded. Whatever. So at this point, I finally get a turn. After watching the kid do all these things and all the players get to do things, I get about another 10 minutes of gameplay. I think at this point, I've had less than 5 minutes of gameplay total. I had part of a cut short dream sequence in which I got to say maybe 5 sentences before I got moved on. I got to talk to the party briefly, which didn't involve any checks, but I didn't get to say more than 3 things before we got interrupted. Then I was told I was apparently just sleeping somewhere, and then he decides after this little scene occurs to say like, oh, where would you be sleeping? And I'm like, well, I'm thinking like I wouldn't be sleeping first of all if I'm getting attacked in my dreams, but you know, we apparently just did it anyway for some reason. Whatever. So from that standpoint, I said, you know, okay, if I was in the house at the time, because we were literally just all talking at the house, I guess I'm still at the house. And I'm going to choose to go back to my workshop at this point to think things over. So if you might remember, chat, I started the session off saying that we had ended the previous session literally in the middle of combat, and then the kid is just so super special awesome that they could just hand wave away the encounter. So I'm thinking to myself, while I'm given like a moment to think, what should I do now that I'm actually given free reign and have been sitting here for about 2.5 hours total and have barely played the game up to this point? No, it was 3 hours at this point. I was 3 hours in, I've had less than 10 minutes of gameplay. So I'm like, okay, so I want to follow up on the previous session, right? Because it just ended super awkwardly, and I want to understand where these things are coming from. So then I asked them, like, okay, so I want to go down the same path that I was at in the last session, is how I described it to him, because I want to see if anybody has been there recently or if there's been any activity since last night, because that's how I framed it. And he goes, oh, no, you don't understand. The last session was a week ago. And I'm like, excuse me? You time skipped me? 10% Jaya? Oh, I might take that. Better than nothing. So apparently he just didn't add this fact. I don't know when he decided it, or if he didn't like me investigating and decided on the fly to do this. You get to decide, chat. How spiteful do you think the DM is? I don't know. Is he just ill-prepared or just decided not to mention this detail? Because it just went straight into this dream sequence. There was nothing before that point, I promise you. So I'm like, well, now I have no leads because I wanted to investigate where the creatures were coming from. And I said that, and I'm like, well, I'm still gonna go there to see if I find anything. Slip through the plot, apparently. So I'm like, okay, well, spiteful or incompetent? Exactly, you decide, chat. You at home get to decide how you feel. Is it spite or incompetency? 50-50 coin flip. I don't even know. I genuinely don't know if he decided right in that moment to do it or if he planned it. Because I can tell you, I was probably the person that paid attention most to the table, because for the first hour and a half, every other player that was not in the one-on-ones, after about 30 minutes, realized that they wouldn't be doing anything, and they all left the table. I want you to know, chat, just to put it in context, I was the only one that stayed at the table the entire time. Even the other people, after they had their turn, got up and walked away at several points for like 20-minute segments because it wasn't going anywhere. But I sat there. And so I'm like, I definitely did not miss this plot point. I'm gonna be real clear. I'm like, okay, well now I'm like, okay, so now I suddenly have no leads because I let a whole week elapse without investigating. You think I would be allowed to care more about giant demons appearing from right next to our fucking stupid place. But nope, apparently I just slept the whole week and decided to just not be allowed to look into it at all. Me when I decide to punish the player who plays the most attention. So then he starts getting weirdly picky with me, and then I'm like, why is he being so specific with me? So I'm like, I'm going to look for any signs of tracks of things that have been around, and I name a specific location. It's like a reflecting pool, because that's where we got attacked before. So I'm like, I'm just looking for any kind of tracks that are near the reflecting pool. So I'm not being like ultra vague with it, just to be clear. Like, I'm naming a specific spot in this location. And then he's like, what kind of tracks are you looking for? And I'm like, any tracks? Like, what do I even see there? And he's like, no, is it like, are you looking for small animal tracks, humanoid? And I'm like, why does it matter? What do I see? And he's like, no, you gotta pick one. I'm like, that's not how that works. I'm like, you have to let me know if there's anything there, and from there I can investigate. You know, it's like I'm purposely trying to do an investigation check equivalency. So he's like fighting me on checking footprints in this area where there's a lot of water, and I would be able to very easily see if stuff is there. Welcome, remote battery. So I'm like, something weird's going on. My gamer sense is tingling. I'm like, why is the DM being so picky with me on what type of footprints I'm looking for? And I'm like, why would it matter if I said human or animal in this area? Why would it matter? I have enough time, I should be able to look at both, right? Or like, if there's multiple, I would be able to determine which one I'm going to spend more time on. So something's not adding up from the, you know, experienced player standpoint. Something is not making sense with this conversation I'm having with him. So then I'm like, okay, so what I'm going to do, because I'm tired of being ambushed by stuff in the night. I don't see this part out loud, but I say, okay, well, I don't find any humanoid foot tracks of interest, was how it was framed to me. I'm like, okay. So then what I'm gonna do, since I'm tired of being ambushed, I had an idea. Because he told me that since a week is advanced, the ground has dried up, therefore no tracks could be found. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? Because we keep getting ambushed in the middle of the night. Before it was sunset, I decide to go take a bucket, and I go to the well that is on this property that we're staying at. And I literally say, I take this bucket, and all I do for the next half hour is I put the bucket in the well, bring the bucket up, pour the water out all over the ground. And I said, I'm gonna do this on every single space between this area and where my character sleeps. And then I'm gonna draw in a perimeter, make the whole ground wet around my particular little building that I sleep in. Because I'm like, at this point, if anybody other than me goes over here, I will know. Because that I do say out loud. Because I'm like, I'm tired of stuff like allegedly getting close to me in the middle of the night, and then I just suddenly have nothing to follow. So I'm thinking outside the box, right? Like, okay, if the ground is not wet enough in order to get tracks, I'm going to make the ground wet in the way that my character is able to do so. I don't have somebody in the party that can like create water or something like that, so I kept it a very grounded solution. Do you want to know what the DM did, chat? Take a guess. Take a guess of what happened to my character as I was doing this. You get to decide, chat. After saying nothing has happened, I found nothing suspicious. Nothing is within hundreds of feet of this location that I've been at for a while. No, I didn't try. Oh, Dry the Well would have been a good one. I'm gonna be honest with you, that would have been funnier. Ambushed while you pick up the bucket. Ding, 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 ding. Suddenly, despite being on active alert, looking specifically for enemies, and telling them I'm looking to see if anything has been nearby, I get ambushed. And not only do I get ambushed, I immediately get attacked while picking up the bucket, by the way. Because of course I don't find anything. Of course, why would I see anything? My character is just eternally blind. And not only this, keep in mind, chat, I have a Helm of Awareness on, and the Steel Defender also cannot be surprised. So get a load of what happens in the span of me attempting to pick up this bucket. I know, I'm super blind. If only I could see like Maya could in Phoenix, right? So in attempts to pick up this bucket, in which I've already literally walked around this entire location for at least a minute in-game before deciding that nothing is there. So I've been there for, as I said before, over a minute at this point, exploring, looking to see if I see anything, actively declaring this is what I'm looking for. and stuff like that. Then I get ambushed. I get hit by a crossbow bolt coming from somewhere I couldn't see, despite having a perception score, passive perception of 17 and 18 from the companion, because it's double proficiency for him, remember that. So apparently I just failed for like a solid minute straight. I get sniped by a hand crossbow, which, if you think about it, chat, which makes me very upset, the normal range of a hand crossbow, having used it as my main weapon, is only 30 feet. So despite being vigilant and moving, and I'm not anywhere near the edge of the forest, because we do live in the woods, I somehow don't notice somebody coming across into the field and shooting me from 20 feet away. Despite being on active lookout for them. I've declared it as such. So not only do they get this free attack on me, but then suddenly 13 other monsters appear. 6 of them move before I'm able to do anything, because apparently it's not a surprise round because no initiative was rolled, even though I just got attacked, and they can just all react move after that he just got this magic attack off on me from a location that I should have been able to see, because they're not behind any cover when it happened. In fact, I was in the only place that had cover, aka the well. I got attacked by like in the grassy fields leading to the well. Somehow I didn't see them, despite being on active patrol for them, nor did I see any signs of them being there recently, I would like to state on top of that. So after all that happens, I get ambushed, and the DM is like, you know, one of the creature, and again, this is how it was described to me, one of the creatures wielding a sword speaks to you in a language you don't know. And I go, really? I'm like, are we sure I don't know the language? Because we're being attacked by demons, and I know Infernal, Abyssal, Sylvan, Common, and Elven. They're not speaking any of those languages? I'm like, are we sure? He's like, it's a language you've never heard of. And I'm like, okay. Okay. And one of the creatures that is attacking us, I recognize, not that he described it as such, but one of the creatures I'm being attacked by is a Drider. Because of course, I somehow didn't see this giant, like, large creature that's like, that I swear is like 10 feet tall. Isn't it a large creature, chat? I swear, it's not a medium-sized creature. I'm not hallucinating, right? Like, this is a giant spider. It's like a woman, like a dark elf, merged with a giant spider. I'm like, how did that thing sneak up on me in the middle when it's not even nighttime? The sun is still up. They're speaking in Braille. Damn, you got me. Yeah, you're right. I need to do better. Chat, I need to do better. You're right. If only I spoke nonsense, then I would understand what the DM is saying. Simply the worst says, I might have missed it. Did this have to be a solo mission, or the other PCs not care to investigate in the first place? It was more I was asked what I was doing while they were off with the kid, in which no one told me where they were. And I wouldn't know where the kid is anyway, because I don't talk to the kid. And it was just like I woke up, went to the well, and then after being, as I said before, then I was told a week had passed after I already went there, and I'm like, well, I don't really want to go to the reflecting pool, because if time has passed, there's nothing to investigate there. So I'm just gonna set up for nightfall. So I'm like within like 200 feet of the party. I'm not like crazy far away. There's no structures between me and them other than like the house, just for clarity. I didn't go off on like this super magical adventure, just so the team was aware. I've stayed within like 100 or so feet of the party. By the time I came back with the well was the furthest, or not the well was the furthest. The reflecting pool was the furthest point. The well was actually closer. The well was within, I think, 80 feet of the party. So I was relatively close. And then like, I get ambushed, so then I shout out intruders, and then he's like, well, no one hears you because they're busy with the kid. That's how he frames it. And I'm like, but they're on the same combat map as me. What are they possibly doing that they don't hear me screaming? Jaya with no charge. So yeah, he basically wanted to ambush and kill my character on many levels, and I think part of that is just because I think he realized he couldn't poison kill me, so he decided to have a giant ambush appear from, I guess, his butt to appear on the board, because there's no signs of them having been there before, and apparently, despite being one of the most perceptive party members in the entire party, I still couldn't find them. And I also have 2 checks of perception, keep in mind, since I have the Steel Defender, who has a, as I said before, fantastic passive perception. It's higher than most other party members, because it is 18, which is very high in DnD. Like, am I gonna beat somebody that has like a +5 and maxed out wisdom? No. But a lot of people don't even have like more than a 12 in wisdom, so like I'm good. So yeah, it's just one of those things where, okay, so then he started fighting me, and I'm like, I kind of mocked him. Like, this was the closest I came to being antagonistic the whole section, or the whole session, was he decided to, you know, he gets this free attack on me, then he lets me reroll after reminding him, because at this point I was like, why are they getting attacks on me? I can't be surprised. And he's like, well, you know, you didn't see them. I'm like, no, but I would still be able to go in initiative order. You can't then just have other characters go. So like, how did all of these characters, I just didn't see like 13 creatures. And then he's like, oh, well, the 4 down here, you know, they just appeared. That's how it was described to me. And I'm like, this is just ridiculous. I'm like, okay, let's hypothetically say that they were invisible, right? Let's say hypothetically these random creatures, which were not really described because he took too long to get to this point in the session. Let's say hypothetically these creatures are invisible. They would still leave footprints behind. I would still know they were there because I'm looking for the footprints. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, even if they were standing still, they're in like a dirt area. I would see it. The area near the well is wet, also for clarity. If that also helps chat with the, you know, it didn't rain recently. When I'm talking about the rain recently, I meant around our house, but like, there's a reflecting pool at a well, and it is wet very often there, and we've described it as such there. So I'm getting kind of annoyed at this point, needless to say. So I said, you know what? I said, listen, you come to my dwelling, you speak to me in a language that I don't understand, and then you threaten me, one of the most heavily armored people on this property. And I said, you have chosen death. That's what I said in game. And I'm like, I've had enough of this nonsense. So for the first time, I think in the entire game, I decided to haste myself. And the DM learned very quickly that he has made a big mistake in trying to solo target me. For those that don't know, when you have an Artificer with haste and has easy access to shield spell, I am never getting hit in physical combat ever again. It is over. Pack your bags. You are not hitting me outside of a crit. It is not happening. Good day, sir. So because of the fact that he's been like not giving me any like magic items at all, as a reminder, I'm level 12. He has not once given me a single magical item, and the party has been moving around with bracers of defense, and they have like, I think one of them had a ring of protection of some sort, and they have like staves, and they have all these items. Most players have at least 3 items or more at this point. I am not able to, even as an Artificer, inquire into crafting for any kind of basic +1. I'm not looking for like wondrous items. I'm talking like, I couldn't even get like uncommon items in a very big city wherein the people that live there are capable of giving rare items, and they just have them as spares. Just want to frame that for you to realize how unfair this is. That I cannot get a basic defensive item. Again, not talking about like rare, super wondrous things. I'm like, no. Like, we just went to this other armory and they had all this stuff for us, but I'm asking for like chain shirt +1, and we can't find any blacksmiths, or there's no mithril or adamantine, or there's no upgrades even in the royal palace in which we have access. No one has any slightly better than normal gear, nor do they have any legends of it, and nobody knows how to get it, but all these other items just exist. Okay, so I decided from that standpoint into that session that I would be focusing on my defenses. So I stacked my defenses with nearly every magic item slot that I had. Again, would I have loved to have used more gimmicky items that would have been kind of fun, one-off things like, Pipes of Haunting, or I don't know, like the refilling jug as like a joke, or like between combat sessions. There's like a dozen items that this character can replicate, and I'm like, you know what? Okay, fine. I'm gonna get like a cloak of protection. I'm gonna get like a shield that whatever the deflecting shield is called for +1. I'm gonna take the enhanced armor. I basically pumped it all in the defense, expecting for this moment that he attempted to do, where he attempted to overwhelm me with multiple creatures, where apparently the party is just suddenly deafened and they can't sense people from 80 feet away in an open field in which I should be in line of sight of everybody. I would also like to point out, I am not hidden behind anything, I am not in a building, I am out in the open. But apparently nobody could come to my aid. So in preparation for some nonsense like this, I have statted my defense as high as I possibly could with the normal infusions that are inherent to the class. Nothing crazy, but that let me get to a DC, or not DC, let me get to an AC of 23. And then I added haste, and I went up to 25, right? Because haste gives +2. And from that point onward, he stopped being able to hit me. And I think he realized, oh no, I have attempted to ambush the tankiest party member wearing a shield, an enchanted shield that they themselves made with their own enhancements, that I cannot really be hit realistically anymore in combat. You can hit me with 20s. I'm not gonna say that can't happen, but that's kind of about it, unless you are like a boss monster. I am not getting hit by normal attacks at this point. You have to think about it this way. As a reaction, I have the ability to burn a level 1 spell slot and pump my AC by another 5 points. You would have to roll a minimum of 19 with a +11 to hit me. It is not happening. It is just simply not happening. Most monsters can barely hit that. So I'm like, no. Fun time is over, chat. Fun time is over. I expected him to pull this nonsense. I'm shaking my head and I'm like, fun time over in combat. He's gonna learn what happens when you're allowed to stack defenses. So I have all these defenses on me, and he attacks, and he's like, does it like a 24 hit you? And I'm like, no. He's like, really? What's your AC? And I'm like, 25 due to haste, the +2. And then he looks over my sheet. He looks at everything that I have, and I'm like, yeah, I'm like literally maxed out with like dex and everything else. I mean, you essentially go from 17 upwards, right? Unless you're doing full plate. It's not like a super hard math to figure out how I got there. So because of the level giving like +2 armor, and I said it before, the +1 shield definitely helped, the cloak protection helps, and the character's allowed to, wear more than one, and I think they get 4 items they can hold instead of 3 to attune. I think that's what it is when you're level 12 Artificer. So everything is fine. So I think he realizes that he can like no longer hit me with his intended boss monster, which is the Drider, because I don't think the Drider, at least in that session, was able to hit anything higher than 24. So I'm kind of guessing it has bad attacks, because it has like 3 attacks if I was counting the DM's attacks properly. So as an experienced player, I'm kind of like listening in, where I'm like, okay, how many attacks are they using? How frequently are they hitting? Other kinds of things. I'm just keeping track of all this meta stuff as I play, because I don't know the monster stat blocks. I don't play 5th edition. So I'm like, okay, it attacks multiple times, so it's probably not a +10. I'm thinking like if you wanted to make it a fair encounter for the level, it's probably like a +8. Or if it's like not enchanted weapons it's attacking me with, maybe it's like a +6 or a +7. So like I'm thinking about all this while combat is going on, because as I said before, I live and breathe combat. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, I don't think he can hit me anymore. I think I've achieved true paradise. that he is attempting to hit me with all these like weaker, I don't know if they were goblin, I don't even know what they were. Listen, chat, I was attacked by things with long swords and that's all they were described as. Were they goblins? I don't know. Were they drow? I don't know. We didn't get very far because by the time this combat session happened, chat, it was going on 11 o'clock. So the first time I got to do something, I get ambushed and then the session ends with me being ambushed. So I gotta think about a grand total of about, if we're being generous, 35 minutes. I think more realistically, 25 minutes of gameplay in a nearly 4-hour long session. Since combat started somewhere around 11 o'clock and we were done by like 11:15 or so. So we managed to get through a single round of combat. And I think he realized that his characters couldn't hit me because he's not, I think, creating challenges appropriate to our party level, because I am level 12 and I'm an artificer who has access to shield spell and it actively uses the shield. So like my defenses are pretty good. I'm not gonna say they're like super broken, and I'm sure you could get them like hyper optimized if you're going like, oh, if I'm Warforged, Warlock, Paladin, married to this person, I get some like bajillion AC. I'm not even doing that. I'm just doing very basic things here. And I think he realized that he couldn't hit me. So he has on the board a whole bunch of tokens. He has 6 creatures with long swords, a Drider, some other creature he never described because he ran out of time. I guess it might have been like a Minotaur. I don't know. Again, he didn't really describe it. And from that standpoint, he decided, I don't know if on the spot or if he just chose not to describe it and he just didn't have miniatures for it. But here's another scenario. Do you think this is fair as a player to have to deal with this? So there are 6 identical figurines on the table, and one of them is like maybe about 10 feet a little further away than the others, but they're all in kind of like a scattered formation. Kind of reminds me of like almost like the number 5 on a dice. Fair, dude, I would have left already. Hell, heck yeah, chat. Also, I didn't realize we ran out of Dynasty Warriors tactics. Let's go to Gundam soundtrack while we listen. Complain about the game. So, imagine that there are 6 identical figures, and most of them attack with longswords. You're like, okay, that makes sense, right? They're the same creature, right? Because they all have long swords. It's the same figurine times 6. Listening to this, I heard kind of like jazz music, and I was like, this doesn't sound like Dynasty Warrior Tactics. But I'm like, maybe it is. And then I looked at it, and I'm like, no, it's some Ryuji Kenshin thing. But from the standpoint of that, 5 of them attack with long swords. And you're like, okay, you know, that's, you know, you got a figurine that roughly had the thing. You know, that seems fair. But then suddenly, one of the ones towards the back, not the one that is furthest back, just one of the ones arbitrarily in the back of a formation of about, I think it was 6, decides to step backwards 10 feet and cast a spell at me. And I'm like, what? They're spellcasters? What? I'm like, wait, what? So apparently just 5 of them are longswords and one of them is capable of spellcasting, but you just don't feel like describing the fact that one of them might have looked different than the other frontline warriors before going into combat. So he hits me with a spell from a creature that looks identical to the rest of the enemies, which are melee only. And then he attempts to longbow me down with the Drider, which doesn't work, I would like to say. The Drider does not hit me at all. It fails miserably. So I'm just kind of sitting there like, I'm like, is he really? It's like, we have like hundreds of figurines, just for chat clarity. So I'm like, why wouldn't you just mark them with a different thing? I'm like, are they all spellcasters? And that just one of them arbitrarily decided to not do that after the others failed to hit me? I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, so he described it as, I think he said a lightning blast hits you, roll reflex to take half. So I'm like, is it the lightning spell? Like, I would know what these spells are. I can cast up to 3rd level spells, and I'm with a wizard that has 5th level spells. I have Knowledge Arcana. I'm like, I wouldn't know lightning bolt? Question mark? I'm assuming that's what he threw at me, but he didn't describe if it was like what else it hit in a line or how it came about. It just roll reflex, and I'm like, okay. Unfortunately, I had a rules faux pas because I'm not used to hasting myself. I forgot reflex has advantage with haste, because I don't normally, as I said before, haste myself, nor do I normally get hit by reflex stuff while hasting. So I was like, oops, I forgot in the moment to roll advantage. I still pass, so ultimately nothing happens there. But I will admit to the chat I am not infallible. I did forget that that was a thing on the many weird things that are specific to 5th edition. I'm like, oh, I thought it was just like, I was like, oh, I guess it makes sense. Wasn't thinking about it. So anyway, I take some damage, and then I start rolling a concentration check, and then I realize I don't think the DM knows I should be rolling concentration when I take damage. The session ended before I could confirm that. Like, I rolled it, but he didn't, like, acknowledge it or ask me to roll against a DC or follow up on anything. So I'm not entirely convinced he knows you have to roll concentration whenever you take damage. So I'm like, and then I'm like sitting there at the end of the session like, has he always been skipping his own concentration checks? Because he never asked me to do concentration. And it's like very obvious that I was concentrating on something. I brought up the fact that I was hasted like every single time. Like, I cast haste. Due to the bonus action of haste, I get an extra attack. I choose to move, which is improved by haste. Like, I literally said the word haste like 3 or 4 times in talking about what I was doing. So then I'm like, I don't know if he's ever rolled concentration check. So I'm going to check with him when we get into combat again, presumably, if I decide to go back, of course. Of like, I'm like, this would explain a lot of the nonsense that was happening earlier. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm like, huh. I'd go back. I mean, it's content, right? Like, I definitely am not having fun at the table. Let me be very clear. I enjoy the players' company. I like the players who are there. I don't really care for the DM. Is this just CCC leveling? Yeah, I thought it'd be easy to do while we're here. We could switch over soon. But I wanted to do story time without doing a complicated quest. Oh, it's still in mop-up operation? The DM seems very obvious in trying to single you out and kill you. Doesn't anyone say anything? Not really, which is also kind of awkward. Like, I don't know most of the players outside of the game specifically. There is somebody that I'm there with who helps me get there, and we talk about it, and we're like, yeah, that's weird. And like, we are on very friendly terms, and we're like, okay, we don't really know what's going on, other than like some weird combat shenanigans are happening where a surprise is being ignored now multiple times, and it has been brought to the DM's attention multiple times at this point that he's ignoring the core mechanic. And it's important because, you know, we have multiple characters that can't be surprised. We have barbarians, we have rogues. Like, there's so many like class abilities and or items that we have that it's like, no, you can't just constantly ambush us and get all these movement actions and all this other nonsense without rolling initiative. That's not in the spirit of D&D, at least. Not in my opinion, anyway. I mean, if we want to read, like, very rules it's written, readying action is something you can only do while in combat, because that's where it's defined. And then you could also say, well, you could also attack outside of combat, too. And I'm like, yes, but typically if you attack something that's animate, then usually that will provoke initiative. Right? Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, yes, and... Like, if you attack a door, I don't think we're exactly going to go into, like, combat tracker for the door. Although, I'm not going to lie, that would be very funny. The door rolled a 20. It remained shut, menacingly. That would be quite something. But yes, it was quite an adventure. think that about covers everything there. I think a lot of players were feeling that in agreement that it was definitely one of the weakest sessions so far, because a lot of us were just left with nothing to do for a large majority of it. So like pet peeves with like the rule bending from the DM aside, even the other players that were engaged in, like, as I said before, like a 40+ minute dream sequence agreed that it was not like a good session. So I don't think anybody is in disagreement on that, at least. There's no like absolutely lunatic takes from the group, from what I heard. Goodbye, these random enemies. I don't know, man. Is 4 hours of someone abusing power to bully you and ignoring you worth an hour at Twitch chat being genuine here? Maybe. I mean, as I said before, I spend time with the other people. I have fun with them. I have fun with the DM specifically. And again, it's not like I go there to specifically spite the DM or whatever. Although I guess if I go back this session, I guess it would be more questionable in that case. It's just more like I'm new, I'm trying to feel things out. And as I said last session, I was mostly positive. I said it was flawed, but at least I could see where it was going. And I was willing to see where it was, you know, where he was willing to take it. But unfortunately, he was doing a lot of the things I did not like, that I complained about initially. You should if you go back time from work Twitch chat, maybe. It's one of those things where I don't know. It goes back into the concept of like, who is the game ultimately for, right? When you go to DnD, is it about the DM being very spiteful towards players? Sometimes it is. How do I view DnD and how it should be? It should be a group effort thing where the DM tries to facilitate some kind of story, but it's ultimately driven by the players. You want to celebrate the players' successes and give them challenges that make them feel like the time they spent on their character sheet was worth it. Whether from like a role-playing perspective or just like a, oh, I got to use this cool thing that, you know, I never got to do before, you know, etc., etc. Like, there's a lot of ways you can help people shine. And I feel like that session in particular was a good example of like how to alienate players, right? Like, you invite like a whole bunch of people, like I said before, like it's potentially up to I think 7, but not everybody can normally make it, so it's at least 6 players consistently. And then sometimes we have special sessions before, but again, we know ahead of time, it's not like last minute or anything. So from that standpoint, I just find it kind of weird that it's like, I don't know if he just is like upset that the wizard is successful in combat and has like come up with like extraordinarily spiteful scenarios to make it so that the outcome is predetermined. Therefore, there's no point for the wizard to do anything because they just can't possibly just beat the no, it doesn't work from the DM. Oh, suppress gun with 15 hit. That's a shame. 7 is way too difficult to me. I learned to count mine at 5. Yeah. I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. Yeah, when I was there, it was... I was with the rogue, I was with the wizard, I was with the barbarian, and that was it. So we only had 5 at the table at that particular session. Oh, and the cleric. Sorry, there were 6. So it's just one of those things where... Again, like, I could kind of see the idea, but... it's just kind of loose. But this one was probably the most railroady of all railroads. Like, like, just random time skips, not asking players what they're gonna do in the interim. The DM is just deciding to do stuff, to the point where the DM is literally playing NPCs and then forces other players to play as the NPCs because he doesn't want to roleplay them? Like, just... it's like a head scratcher. I'm just like, I'm so confused. Using restroom, no worries. I cannot believe I almost leveled doing this quest. What nonsense. Oh, I see remote there. Remote says no. We'll switch over quests, I think, once it becomes a new drop rate. I was thinking about doing Purple ID, AO3, but I don't feel like doing that quest right now. People were doing that for Heaven Punisher. I was remarking, I think at the time, Yellow Boss for a minigun there. Yeah, I don't think I'm missing any details in the story. I'm just pausing a moment to think if there, you know, if I glossed over anything. As I said before, I barely played in the session, and it's not just me. Like, I definitely played the least out of the group, don't get me wrong. But, like, even the cleric, I think only had maybe 45 minutes, 50 minutes? Like, they also didn't really get to interact with the game very much. So it's not just me. There were several characters. I would say the wizard probably interacted the most. Mostly because they were forced to roleplay as the kid. Followed by the barbarian. So, I don't know. So I guess I'm ready for DnD story number 2. Believe it or not, chat. Yes, there's more. It's not involving the same group. It's a very different group. So I've been going to... I guess the best way to put it is like kind of like a Pathfinder game. I know, even Blue Dawn is confused. It's like a simplified version of D&D. It's not like super complicated or anything. I'm not there spending time like picking out character classes or whatever. These are all like pre-generated characters. Rules are pretty simple. I basically have the equivalency of spell slots, or other characters have special abilities they can use twice while in a one-on-one combat with another player. There's some things they can only use once in combat, and not too much else is involved. It's about as straightforward as you get. And I've been winning the last few ones consecutively, so I think this would mark... I'm like almost at the highest rank possible in the arena. I think I've won 4 times so far, out of I think 6 that have been held. And I wasn't there the first 2, to give you an idea. So I've definitely been on a winning streak, to give context for this. So I get informed that essentially, you know, there's revisions to the arena battle, and he goes through, he has like this little pamphlet thing, and he's like, okay, you know, these are the things I'm looking to rebalance, make things a bit more even. And I'm like, okay, I have nothing wrong with that in concept. And he starts going through all these changes. I'm like, okay, sounds good. Don't disagree, sounds good. No, I'm not hearing any like red flags here. But then like I go to my character sheet, which I've been using for quite a few times here. And he goes, okay, so I made some adjustments on your sheet. Make sure you take a look at them. And I'm like, okay, so what did you adjust on the character sheet? So, you know, like, my character has like a very simple concept, right? I'm basically like a equivalency of a war mage. I have like a fireball, a targeted fireball, and like a smoke screen for concealment. I'm not like a super complicated character, but I play the character well. So it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, well, let me see what my abilities are. And let me tell you, chat, my heart sunk like immediately when I looked at my sheet. And then it went from being not enthusiastic to play the character anymore to just downright, there's no way I'm playing the character before, when I got to see the other characters. So there was a rebalance, which, again, I don't disagree with that in concept. The problem with it, though, is that I think because I'd been noticed that I'd won a lot, and again, it's more that I would say I'm a seasoned player than anything outright broken on the sheet. A lot of the other characters have the same abilities as me, just flavored differently. So, like, there is an ice version of me, for example, and, like, a lightning version of my character. So it's not like I'm the only character with those kinds of things, for added clarity. But the problem with it is, like, the nerfs were so significant that a majority of my abilities were just completely useless. And I mean, like, they were genuinely unusable trash. I'll give an easy example. So I'm one of the weaker characters at the arena. I can only swing my melee weapon for 1d6 plus 4, and that's with the enchanted weapon. Right? Like, it's not great. So one of my spells got replaced by an ability that says you can roll, instead of with a plus 11, because that's what I have to strike, I can roll with a plus 8. Already this is harder to hit than my normal hit. And in total you get to roll a d6. I think it's either a d6 or a d8. But noticeably no strength bonus. So regardless of what damage dice that is, it's still not in any way worth it. It's 15% harder to hit, and the minimum and maximum damage are so much worse. So already not great. It has another ability that if I land the hit, I'm allowed to do an opposed strength roll to essentially trip somebody and get a second attack. And given that I only have one attack normally, you'd think like, okay, maybe it's just the poorly balanced extra attack that like, if you happen to land a hit and you also happen to land a opposing strength check, you know, maybe it would be useful. Problems. I am the lowest strength character in the arena. So doing a strength check makes no sense for my character to do. I'm fighting things with like the equivalency of 20 strength, 18 strength. I think I have a 14 just for check clarity. So like, I'm already at extreme disadvantage on any of these rolls because it's not what my character's good at. But then like the icing on the cake was that one of the characters that I started fighting against, who has the same AoE special as me, which is one of my only good moves, has the ability to just roll 1d6 plus 5 every time they hit, and they get 2 attacks. So automatically, they don't have to make a strength check to hit, like an opposing strength check to work. They just hit it. And then because it's a normal attack, they get like this critical bonus that says like, whenever they crit, the static number is doubled. So they do, instead of 5 damage, they do 10. Instead of 1d6, they do 2d6. And then all the damage that they have dealt is doubled unless I then roll a save, in which case they only add 50% to the damage. So the damage is doubled, and then I take either another 50% from that, or... Ooh, something interesting? No, nothing interesting. Or I take the full damage. So, I got hit by a crit very early on. This is not a hypothetical anymore. I get hit by this crit. I have a total of 50 health. The highest damage that I can output on my sheet with a one-use spell, assuming the person fails and I roll max damage, is 18 damage. They did 42 damage to me, chat, on one normal attack that they could spam an unlimited number of times with no caveats. And I'm like, this is just actually bullshit. I'm sorry. I was like, I'm looking at this, I'm like, so you're rolling 2d6 plus 10 and then another 1d6 plus 5, but then the 2d6 plus 10 gets multiplied unless I make a save. And I'm like, I only have 50 HP and you could one-shot me on a normal? But my all-powerful one-time per encounter attack is like a third of the power? Excuse me? And so like, I have another attack that is very similar, where it's like, I can choose to roll with a +8, and if they fail a reflex save, I do another 1d6 damage. And I'm like, so I can only do this a limited number of times, and it's just infinitely worse than just somebody doing their normal attack twice? Oh. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe at least I have a good defensive special still. Right? Like, because Smoke Screen enabled me to get concealment. I'm like, okay, that's useful. It doesn't last for more than 2 rounds, so it's a very limited amount. But, you know, 50% mischance is still pretty good. You know, you'll take anything you could get, especially if they're out of abilities, to potentially put you up in terms of damage. I'm like, okay. You know, I mean, if I get crit, you know, then it just ignores it or whatever. But then it's like, then I look at what it turned into. So it went from a 50% concealment to just +2 to AC. Not even like +2 to AC in saves, just +2 to AC. And I'm like, this sucks. Like, I genuinely don't want to play this character again. I'm like, if I decide to go back, I will not play the character. I will just say the character's retired. Unless this character gets some like massive Insano buffs, and or the other characters get horribly, horribly nerfed. I just don't see the point in playing my character anymore. When their melee attack does more damage than my limited use spell, and my limited use spell is harder to hit, like, why even play the character? Like, that was my genuine takeaway from that experience. So it wasn't really fun watching certain characters with those multi-attacks play. I don't have anything that like debuffs their damage either for chat clarity. Like I literally just have 2 crappy attacks that rely off of me using one of my worst saves or relying on them to make a strength check against me. And I'm like, this is useless. I don't want this. I keep getting disarmed. How annoying. So, I don't know. I just feel like some of this stuff should be kind of obvious when you just kind of look at the numbers. Like if a spell does less damage unless you succeed twice in a roll than just doing a normal attack, why do you even have it as a spell? Like, I feel like that's just a general statement. This is not, like, specific to D&D or anything. It's just like, if it's literally better to normal attack, why would I do anything other than normal attack? It's not like there's elemental weakness in this particular system. It's not like it's like, oh, this is fire damage and it bypasses. No. None of that exists in this system. It's just crappier to hit melee move. That also doesn't have any kind of bonus on crit, which most normal attacks do in that particular system. So I felt kind of disappointed. So I got kind of divested with the character pretty quickly. So pretty much as soon as I lost, because again, like there's no way I'm beating it. Like there's just, I literally did the math in my head. I'm like, okay, they're doing like a minimum of 8 damage a turn. I could barely do 3 to 5 whenever they make a save. I'm like, there's no way. Mathematically, it's not checking out. I have to roll so well, and they have to fail so bad for me to have a chance. And if I take their rolls and flip-flop, I wouldn't be able to kill them, but they would definitely be able to kill me with the same number of rolls. So I'm like, I'm definitely at a very big disadvantage here, where I'm taking, you know, 6 to 8 rounds to kill somebody, and they're killing somebody in 3, right? Like, it's just, I'm not playing the same game as them anymore. Oh, this is this camera angle is a mistake. Hello, O'Gills. I don't know. I do like the concept of PvP. As I said before, I'm a big combat person in general with D&D or like Pathfinder, most games in general. So if the combat is very limited in the sense that there's, if your combat boils down to, and then I normal attack, pass, I don't find that kind of stuff exciting. But I like it when you're like taking advantage of terrain or skill checks or kind of doing complicated actions. That's usually why I end up playing a spellcaster. Because I get bored with traditional melee. And something in like the 5th edition system. I don't think like every version of D&D is really good at supporting the equivalency of combat maneuvers, like your trip, your grapples. Like just inherently, either just because they get phased out as a mechanic, it's not really something that gets pushed over other choices. Or just the fact that, you know, as you go larger in power scale, you know, you're fighting like CR 15 or 16 monsters. The monsters are more likely to be like gargantuan and all these other things that by nature give them massive size bonus. Oh, I died instantly. I'm gonna slash lobby. I'm not interested in fighting this. Where like it just inherently it becomes harder and they scale very rapidly. So unless you're like super speccing into it, it's not a very viable strategy. I didn't do that. Oh, it's just a bit unfortunate. I usually have fun at that, and it's not because I win. I do actually like how close the games were the last time I played. I would say I had like one sort of useless move where I feel like the damage was like arguably not better than a normal attack. But when I went to play with it today, it lost the strength bonus on damage, and the check that was opposed was no longer one my character was good at. So I'll give an example. One of the ones for like igniting somebody on fire, which I can only do twice in the combat within like a 10 round. Literally, you have a 1-minute combat. Whoever's still alive with the most HP wins kind of thing. I only had 2 casts of that, and it used to go against an opposed charisma roll, which my character is good at because they're essentially like a war mage. So I used to have the ability to say like, oh, I'm fighting like the big dumb fighter who doesn't specialize in charisma, so I can go ahead and choose to hit them with the charisma attack because they're likely to fail. Because I'm rolling with like a +4 and they're rolling with like a 0 or like even a -1. So like I'm definitely at advantage. But it doesn't work on all the mage characters, because even the ones that are more like intellect bound have a somewhat decently high charisma stat. So it made more sense when my character could target different saves, like reflex versus will versus charisma, so it could kind of get a feeling of where they might have a weakness based off of what they're doing. So if I'm fighting like another mage, I'm like, okay, they're probably really bad at reflex. So let me start with my reflex attacks and just focus on melee and just being evasive. Where if I'm fighting a melee character, I'm like, oh, you know, they have a weak will. You know, I could probably hit them with this ability instead of that ability. And that's how the game started out. But the last session, I did receive some nerfs where the saves, as said before, the damage was tuned down, which is not inherently a problem. But now the problem is that most of the things that I target just don't target anything that would win against things in the arena. Like, I have to make a strength check as like a strength 14 character against fighters? Against mostly fighters and rogues? I'm like, And even some of the other, and just to be clear, some of the other wizards also either have matching strength or higher than me. I think I have the lowest total damage with melee. I confirmed at least across 8 potential characters. I had the lowest weapon die and the lowest total bonus of damage. I'm not sure how much of that equated to like magical weapon versus strength, but you know, some people had +5, some people had +6 to their rolls. And I'm only rolling with a +4. So one other thing that was also kind of a system disadvantage, which again, I think is fair. You want to give more of an advantage to the fighter characters. There's nothing wrong with it. But they said like they introduced a new system where if you critical miss, you're allowed to get an attack opportunity against the player that critical missed. So by me having the weakest melee weapon, I'm inherently a little weaker at that than other characters. The problem is like that mechanic was introduced and crits were improved, and I have the least amount of attacks in the game. And on top of that, my spell damage went down while their options went up. So it felt pretty bad, I would say, as a prospective player. Where I went from being able to do, I think at one point I could have done upwards of like 28 damage if I max rolled, like literal max roll, and they have to fail. Like, just to be very clear, it's not just like, oh, I get it for free every round. Like, no, multiple things have to happen. So all those things combined, and I'm like, now I'm barely able to average like 12 damage a round. And if most of the melee characters attack me, they're averaging a minimum of 12 damage, or they're on average at least doing 9, or they're doing upwards of 20, or if they crit, they're doing like 40 plus. And it's just like, I just can't keep up with it. So between that and like the big defensive debuff, where I no longer had concealment, I'm like, I don't really have a good way to stop them from using some of their best abilities anymore. Like 2 AC is nothing to like a fighter character. I'm like, okay, I'm barely raising the thing that they are already good at hitting. I mean, that's why, like, as good as like shield spell is in DnD, that's also why things like mirror image exist. At the end of the day, like, there's a reason like invisibility is good and improved invisibility is good in combat. Like, it's because it's another layer they have to get through. You want to build that wall, as it were, become impenetrable. But yeah, it felt really bad. As I said before, at one point I think it just did like barely 5 damage a round, because I was rolling like pretty low on most of my dice, and then they would save. So like if I rolled average and they take half damage, I was doing like 6 a round. And I got to see the people that just had like all these boosted melee moves do a minimum of 8, or at some points I saw them do, because they could like self-buff and then attack, so they could choose to give up 1 round of attacks for like a big attack. You know, they're doing upwards of like 30, 40 damage, and they also potentially apply debuffs to me on top of that. So I'm like, I don't know, just I'll probably talk to the DM separately later. I'm gonna let a little time pass, because I'm still not super happy about it. But it's just one of those things where it definitely felt bad. So I'm gonna communicate to them that it's like, I would rather at least explore the other characters at this point. If they're not going to change the character I was playing in a slightly more positive direction, I'm like, I'm just not going to play them. It's one thing if you like willingly go into characters that are more like joke characters, but when your character went from like, oh, you're a well-rounded character that doesn't really burst people, yeah, it's like time to respec, because I'm like, the character doesn't do what I want them to do anymore. They're targeting all the worst saves to do against fighters, but they lost their ability to target like wisdom and charisma. So like, what am I supposed to do? I'm targeting their best saves, and then like, I'm just kind of even against wizards, not even an advantage against wizards if I also attack with the same spells. So like, at best I'm neutral, but against half the cast, I'm at disadvantage. We call those bad matchups. I'm just like, this is just not... It's not great. Check RBR real quick to see what it is, because it did transition over to a new thing. Scarlet Realm 2, which is Case. Phantasmal World 3, which I don't remember what that is. New Mop-Up Preparation 2. Phantasmal World 3, huh? Are we doing Del Beater? Yeah, that's the box run. I mean, I guess we could do a joke run of those. Not exactly the hardest run in the world to do. At least I got some weapon unlocks there. So, I don't know. I think there's always kind of that tenuous balance with, you know, wizards versus warriors. Like, I do agree warriors should have more, like, consistent damage than wizards, but, like, wizards should also be able to burst. And I feel like a big issue, too, which I don't think I articulated, is that when I first started playing, if they resisted and they got the saving throw, they took half damage. But in today's session, not only was the damage lower, like instead of rolling with like, you know, 3d6 plus something, I'm just rolling 3d6, for example, on a spell. So not only is like my spellcaster modifier not applied to damage anymore, but on top of that, if they pass the save, they just take no damage. I don't mean half damage. I mean, it just doesn't work. So I'm like, are we really reintroducing Save or Suck on like just very pitiful damage spells? Like, really? I definitely don't take those when I play DnD, I said. Can you imagine if something like Fireball was like, oh, everybody gets to roll reflex, so they resisted, guess they don't take any damage. Like, there's only select characters that should be able to do that, right? Like, if the rogue could say that, if that was the character I was fighting, then I'd be like, okay, that's their gimmick. They might not have damage, but they're a good matchup against me, and I could accept that, and that's fine. They can have their little advantage on that. But I don't think it's really fair that it's like all my abilities are so much tuned down in damage, and all of their abilities are tuned up. It felt like they definitely wanted to end my win streak, and it felt kind of unfun. Where if I had literally the same character the last time that I went, which was already downgraded, just to be clear, it was downgraded between the first time I played and the third time I played, I would have been fine. I actually would have won almost all the matches, because I would have been hitting them with the spell modifier. So if I hit them with 3 spells, I'm doing on average 15 more damage. So that adds up when most characters only have 50 or maybe like 65 health. Like, suddenly missing 15 damage is the equivalency of like multiple Ephinea God Battle. I guess I'll pick it up just because. There we go, we acquired God Battle. It's just kind of one of those things where, I don't know. I think it more reminds me of why I don't play like 3rd edition equivalencies anymore, really like play a lot of 2.0 in terms of D&D, where I'm not interested in the, oh, it's really powerful, but if it fails, you don't do anything. Kind of like the changes to the modern ones, where you at least take half, or there's like certain guaranteed effects. Or if you play systems like Pathfinder or Mutants and Masterminds, there's like degrees of success. So, you know, you might not get stunned if you get hit by something, but you take a small amount of damage, unless you critically succeed by beating the save by like 10 or more. Then you might totally negate it. And it's like, yeah, you get to celebrate, you know, potentially how much you've overwhelmed them, or how well they rolled against you. I think leads to more dynamic gameplay. So I'll probably make that comment to them to just avoid the saber suck on wizards, because it just leads to very binary experiences. Like at one point I basically fought the fighter. I had to target one of their better saves because I just didn't have any other options, and there was absolutely no way I was out meleeing the fighter in a melee match. So I had to go for it. I had no other options. And it was just to the point where they resisted twice, and I basically just told them GG. Like, oh, there's no way I'm winning. And it was true. Like, I took, like, over 40 damage in 3 rounds, and I did a total of 5 damage in 3 rounds, chat. Like, it was bad. I'm like, when we only have, as I said before, 50 to 55 health, or 50 to 65 health, I'm like, yeah, it's over. I'm not even gonna pretend. I literally was like, if you hit it all, don't even roll damage. My character's dead. Just let me know. I'm already out of spells because I only have 2 casts, and you resisted 2 of them, and one of them did, like, low damage because you saved against the other one. I'm gonna slash lobby. Huh. Joke's on you, game. I was slash lobbying. Guess I'll put away these items. I guess we'll do a little bit of box runs while we finish up this conversation. Put in some gibberish first. Just ultimate box runs. We should be fine. We have a force. I'll bring in whatever. It doesn't matter. Play low-level characters. Just a box run. So I think from that standpoint, you know, when I'm looking for like what interests me in like D&D and kind of tying the 2 stories together, I like to be involved in combat. Role-playing, it depends on if it's a strength or not. To me, I mean, I'm definitely very, very combat-minded, so I'm going to have a lot more to say, tactically speaking, and I'm definitely crunching the numbers. I'm listening to, like, what is the lowest number a monster's been hit by. I ask for monster descriptions to kind of get, like, a meta sense of, like, do I think the creature is evasive? Do I think the creature is tanky? Do I think the creature is bulky? Do I think the creature is really strong? And, like, I'm trying to gauge all these things by just asking. I'm not gonna say innocuous, because I mean, I think most people would understand what I'm looking for when I'm asking those things. But I think from the perspective of those kinds of games, when you start taking away options from the player, whether it's from the standpoint of you hand wave and just say your characters just fell asleep in the afternoon, even though you've been being attacked in your sleep, and that's how the session started, so why would you go to sleep until you understand if this is going to happen again and you've looked into it? Or whether it's something like you had options in order to deal with tanky characters and those are gone, or whether you're dealing with mages and those options are gone. It feels kind of bad when you think you're coming into one scenario and you're revealed to get into another. Like, would I have had a problem with my damage being nerfed if everybody else's damage was nerfed? No. If the person wasn't capable of doing 42 damage in a round and they only did like 22, I don't think I would be sharing that kind of story of balance with the team, right? Where it's just kind of one of those things where it really does pay to just ask people, just bounce off an idea of whether something makes sense. Oh, it's rare enemy week, gross. Oh, what a bad quest lineup for episode 2. Yeah, that's a massive oof. Smelling some Igna cloaks. Yeah. Smelling some poorly rolled quests. Speaking of ways to fix RBR, please don't bring in quests that don't have rare enemies when it's RBR week. Please don't do that. But yeah, it's just one of those things where I really don't appreciate that player agency being taken away. That is the thing I will harp on over and over again. I do not like it when player agency is removed. Like, I have willingly dedicated time, and other players, not just me, other players are dedicating time to play a game with the DM. The DM's purpose is to make sure people kind of have fun. I don't think it's like a good idea to, like, as a player necessarily make a big stink. If people are having fun and, you know, something that you think could be adjusted, you know, don't throw like a temper tantrum, right? Like, there's a proper time and a place for those kinds of things. Like, you want to work with the DM for those things. So, you know, I'm thinking about it in a more constructive manner, because ultimately, you know, I don't think the second DM did anything, you know, malicious. at the end of the day. I think they just kind of overcompensated. It might have had an oversight with one or two of the fighter characters that they were overtuned, and it happens. I'm not gonna take it personal. However, when you're starting to see like a repeated pattern, when you're seeing your equivalency of, you know, that literally like this, the DM is literally asking you whether or not the robot will basically protect you in your sleep to figure out whether or not the kid can murder you. Like, there's just a certain line where you kind of cross it, and it's not really ambiguous anymore. Do you know what I mean, chat? Like, or like, if you're trying to rush the story forward and you're upset the players have figured out that, gee, you know, an encounter came from over here last time, maybe we should investigate it to figure out why there's encounters coming from there. Then you proceed to just roadblock the player, tell them nothing's there, and then attack them from the place in which nothing was there. It gives a bad impression to the player. Like, celebrate the player's success. People are thinking outside the box, right? They're trying to follow the crumbs that you're laying out. You know, these are things as DMs you should be celebrating. Like, if I was creating that system for the combat thing, I would be excited to see, you know, how the meta evolves with all these different abilities and how they interact with each other and how players feel about certain interactions. I'm gonna go back, I think, for that power. Nah, I'm not gonna go back for that power material. We'll reset again. I don't feel like doing that other room. I mean, we could possibly do the other room on the next round, just not this one. I'm not feeling it, chat. So I just think ultimately when it comes down to these things, some of it's a communication thing. Like, I do feel like a little bad, well, past tense, I did feel bad a little bit in the last session that, you know, the DM was stepping outside their box in the previous session and role played like kind of like a creepy kid character. And I think they did that well. Like, we want to, as I said before, highlight the successes, you know, improve the base. There was something workable there. Saying like it wasn't quite polished. I understood what they're going for, but there are definitely some issues, especially with combat. Combat has been a big sticking point with them constantly, where something is just not right with it. And we keep trying to raise it to their attention and they're not paying attention. But from the standpoint of like forcing players into situations and then possibly just getting impatient because players are not figuring things out at your pace, like, we don't see your notes. We don't know what you want us to do. Like, if you feel like something's missing, provide clues. Like, oh, they're not picking up that they should possibly do something with the kid, then just say, like, put a metaphor or an image in the dream that the players can follow up. And then, like, maybe it could have been, like, a location in the house where they saw the kid putting something in there in a dream, and then the kid doesn't want to acknowledge that that happened, but then you go to investigate it later, and you find something that leads you to another thing, and then you possibly, you know, tail the kid to see where they're going after a certain time because they mentioned it in the note. Like, there's so many ways you could work the players in if they're not quite doing what you're looking to do. But, like, just don't have, like, another NPC come along and start taking over the show. Don't do that. Like, we're not here to have you have a conversation with yourself with two characters, nor should a player be role-playing as one of the characters you should be role-playing as the DM. Like, maybe there's some, like, very, very niche and optional things where that might happen. Like, let's say you have a co-DM. Like, then, like, okay, you know, that could make sense. You're like, okay, this person's clearly better at doing this kind of role. Like, there's, like, some very limited and niche scenarios where I would kind of agree with it. But, you know, on the whole, if you're a DM with an average of 4 to 5 players, even 6 players, you really shouldn't be doing these things. It's just, there's no reason for it. So, hopefully, as I said before, I will try to be a bit more vocal with the first DM. I actually think I had a good talk with them last time, and I thought the things were actually pretty good based off the conversation, where, you know, I mentioned a couple things like, you know, you had a combat session where you made us roll initiative twice, even though we already attacked. Right? Like, that's kind of a big mess up. I think we can all agree. Like, that's pretty bad to have an entire round of combat go and then request initiative again. Right? Like, that is... Something about it is not, like, adding up. Oh, oops, I thought they were over here. My bad. That wasn't my bad. There we go. So, you know, again, like, I don't want to frame it in, like, a very negative way, but, like, if the DM is gonna come off as, like, very spiteful, it's just... I don't know. Like, my normal advice would just be to leave the scenario. There's definitely other games you can join. I would say in my scenario, I at least have, like, a story to tell at the end of the day. So I have value from that. But at the same time, it's like, I'm definitely not as invested with the story. Forget if I opened those boxes. Oh, I did. They're done. Damn, that sucks. We'll do one more. And I think for the second DM, it's, as I said before, for me, it came across as more of an oversight. Because I think even they were a little surprised that, you know, one of the players can do 90% of your health in one attack action and not roll max damage. That's a little silly. You probably shouldn't allow that in a combat scenario that usually lasts between 4 to potentially 10 rounds, depending on how well people roll. So again, I feel like that it's a difference between of like navigating inexperience or testing something new. And you know, it's fine. You act as like the playtester, so you want to give them the honest feedback, you know, just tweak this a little bit, or that feels a little overtuned, or maybe you could approach it this way. And again, they will take it with a grain of salt. They might do it, they might not do it. But you know, at the end of the day, the point of it is that players and the DM should be having fun. The DM is more in control of the scenario in which the players could have fun. And that's why usually in DM sessions, there's the equivalency of session 0. And I think the second DM did at least a decent job of explaining things they wanted to try by going through the list of rule changes to make it so it's not like an unexpected surprise. Well, except for the character sheet, that was kind of unexpected. But aside from that, it's like one of those things where, you know, the more you communicate, the better it is. And I feel like the more that you have a vision in mind as a DM, you just have to be able to say at some point, the players are going to do something unexpected. They're going to go to a building you didn't plan for them to go to. They're going to get obsessed with an NPC that you don't have a name for. They're going to follow a lead that you didn't really think about because they're approaching the scenario in a way that you didn't think of. Or maybe they missed a clue and they're feeling a little stuck. But you don't want to just directly tell them, you know, where they should go. Like, oh, they should clearly go to, you know, warehouse district B because that's where I need them to go next. Figure out a way, you know, on the fly to kind of go into those things. And I think by just working with the players both in and out of the game, it just leads to a better experience. So I think, chat, that wraps up the D&D stories. I don't really have much else to say. That's kind of just my analysis on those two. Those are my takeaways. Again, if you find yourself in kind of a toxic relationship with it, probably don't go back to it. If some other player was telling me this story, or somebody in the stream told me they had a similar experience to the first one, not the second one, more the first one, that would be one of those times where you're like, just bail. It's okay. It's not worth it. Not worth, chat. But anyway, we're going to, I guess, continue playing PSO, but I'm actually going to break up the recording here so people that want to hear the D&D story get the juicy, nearly hour-and-a-half long story with some pauses in between. So for now, chat, we're going to wrap up this quest and say goodbye to YouTube, and then we're going to have a little discussion as to what to do during Rare Enemy Week. So we're going to finish up this quest, and I guess I'll say hello, Brandon Knight. Hope you're doing well. But yeah, needless to say, definitely disappointed. I definitely thought the other DM was getting a little better. Not like fantastic or anything, but definitely like on the road to improvement. And they just, whew, that was just a really rough session to sit through. Oh man, it is what it is, I guess. Anyway, we'll let them kill those things, and I'm gonna slash lobby here. So with that, oh, I forgot there's Morphos at the end. Oh, I totally forgot, my bad. I've been leaving a bit early. Well, whatever, they're gonna go kill those. But from the standpoint of the video or the VOD, let's say goodbye to YouTube. So if you've watched to this point, I'd like to say thank you for watching, and I guess see you in the next part.